Some of the most memorable experiences in my life have been when I have traveled. I'm sure this is true for you as well. There's something life-changing about pushing the boundaries of what you've been comfortable with, meeting new people, and seeing how they live. And when you've done it once, even if you don't have the restless feet of a seasoned traveler, your heart seeks out that feeling again and again. The thing is, travel is not something that everyone can afford, but it's something to work towards. Thanks so much for tuning in to MoneyWise. I'm Alex Matthew. On today's episode, I want to help you put some items onto your bucket list and also talk about how you can check them off. My first guest today is someone you may recognize. She's probably already helped you plan some of your holidays. YouTuber, explorer, travel expert, Tanya Khanija. Thanks so much for joining me on MoneyWise.
Thank you so much, Alex, for that lovely introduction. And I'm so happy to be on the show and talking about the one thing that I absolutely love, which is traveling.
So I do want to tell our viewers what this is all about. Of course, this is going to help them put a few places that you visit, and you've gone to so many places, but you're going to narrow it down to just about 5 locations that you think that everybody should visit.
Yes.
And you're also going to tell them about a few travel hacks, but that's just in a bit. But yeah, I know that I asked you to drill it down to 5. Was that difficult to do?
It was probably the hardest thing I had to do this morning, because some of the destinations, I think at least the list that I'd sent to you are some of my favorite countries, some of my favorite places, because I feel travel is one of the most transformational experiences of life. And once you get hooked to it and you experience it once, you realize just how much it can change who you are as a person, the kind of people you meet, the friends you make for a lifetime, even though you just probably talk to them on a video call or something once in a while. But still, it just feels like a very cozy, warm, fuzzy feeling inside of you. And you want to do more of it. And these destinations are very close to my heart. And I think our viewers are going to be really surprised and their minds are going to get blown with the kind of details I have for them today, especially, I think, the hacks for how you can save on travel.
Absolutely. So let's kickstart this list. I think Norway is on top of the list. Tanya, why is this making the list? First of all, it's not something that people would normally think of as something to put in their bucket list, right?
Yes. But when I visited Norway, I was so surprised with everything that it has to offer, because it's very close to the North Pole. So you could say it's within the Arctic Circle. At least the northern side of Norway is within the Arctic Circle. And this year, 2024 and 2025 happens to be these are two of the best years to see the northern lights. So for our viewers who are not aware, the Aurora Borealis, which are these dancing lights in the sky, green and red and beautiful magical colors. And there are only 8 destinations in the world from where you can see them. But Norway tops the list for me because of also the kind of experiences you can have over there. Imagine being in a yacht and seeing the northern lights from the middle of an ocean.
Fantastic.
Or going for a whale watching tour in a boat with somebody who's really close to you, maybe your partner, maybe your family. And you're packed in multiple layers, but you can see snowy mountains pass you by, and everything is so pristine over there. It feels otherworldly.
And the fjords are really famous, but it sounds expensive, Tanya. Is it?
It is one of the more expensive destinations for sure, but I think something that has to be on everybody's bucket list, like I said, at least this coming year. And if you plan in advance and you plan it really well for, let's say, the end of 2025, it is something that I think people can afford with a little bit of planning.
Okay, so how much would it cost? And give us a sense of how many days you would normally spend. What would you do?
Okay, so I would say you can also go for a shorter trip, let's say a 4-day trip to just Tromsø, which is the Arctic capital of Norway. And if you spend just 4-5 days over there, 3-4 days, I would say, to begin with, to maximize your chances of seeing the northern lights, even that could be enough. And you could plan it in a way that you maximize a lot of these activities that you get to do, like I said, the whale watching and seeing the fjords, going for a fjord tour, or even dipping in ice cold water in a sauna. I think that should also be something on everybody's bucket list. But on an average, it could cost up to 3 lakhs per person to visit. And if you plan it really well, let's say if you're not renting a car and if you're just staying in one place, or if you're just booking a lot of tours or group tours to minimize your budget, it can be done and you can see some beautiful things over there.
But 3 lakhs with the airfare?
With the airfare, yes.
Shifting to a completely different location from the north to the to the east of Asia, we go to Japan, right? And a lot of people have probably considered it because of the kind of depreciation that you've seen in the yen.
Yes.
It's made things a little cheaper from that perspective.
Yes.
Why is it on the bucket list, though?
Japan is such a unique destination. I think most people call it the most futuristic country in Asia, and I won't disagree. I think it has such unique things to offer, from Tokyo, which is obviously quite futuristic, but also how traditional it is and very similar to India, I would say, in its cultural and family values. The way people are so close-knit within
Yes.
each other and how polite they are. The whole experience of Japan is, I think, one of the favorites from my 2024 travels. And I've been to a lot of countries in 2024, but I think Japan stands out for me so much, especially because I went during the cherry blossom season.
Yes. Which is when?
Which is, it's from March to April. In the beginning of April, it's on the lower side, but I have a very good tip for people actually.
Which is?
You know how the country stretches from
Yes.
north to south,
Yes.
right? And most people only go to the south side of Japan. So they'll probably go to Tokyo, Nara,
Yeah.
Osaka, Kyoto, or maybe even Hiroshima or Mount Fuji
Yeah.
at most. But if you hit the north side of Japan, that is where you get to see cherry blossom in mid-April, which
Wow.
is not which does not happen in the south anymore. In south, it ends by end of March, and if you go to the north side, it's one of the most beautiful cherry blossom you'll ever get to see. And nobody hits these places because they just hit all the popular destinations.
So in the north, where would you go? And okay, so how many days would you spend in Japan? How much does it cost?
I would say a 14-day trip could cost you, for a little lesser than 10-day trip could cost you 1.5 lakh per person.
Okay.
If you do it on a budget.
So that's
Actually,
really cheap.
Yes, and that's how much I ended up spending in Japan with flights. And I booked my flights a little bit in advance.
Are you serious? But
Yes.
you're talking about a real budget. You're not spending on luxury hotels, obviously.
I did not spend on luxury hotels, and hotels are the only expensive commodity you could say in Japan, because each night could cost you about 10,000, 15,000, at least in Tokyo. But the rest of the destinations, especially north, was not that expensive.
Oh, okay.
And I also got a JR pass, which is the pass for taking all of these bullet trains, and you
Yeah.
normally get a 7-day pass. So if you're going for a 10-day trip, you spend the first 3 or the last 1 day traveling or taking the JR pass. But when you do have that pass, you can actually take unlimited number of bullet trains,
Right.
and you can hit any destination you want to. So don't stay limited to just these popular destinations. You can actually go to the north, you can come back from north, hit the south. And if you plan it really well and understand how to use this pass, you can hit so many nice destinations.
A few places to hit in the north?
Okay, I went to Hirosaki, and that is where I saw the most magical cherry blossom.
Yeah.
And there were no tourists over there. Nobody from the West, nobody from India, only Asian tourists, probably just from Japan or Korea, because they know where to go to.
So I know that we spoke about a certain number before, but I could spend endless amounts of time talking about the places you could go to. Let's run through the last 3, right? Because we've got Peru, we've got
Oman
Zimbabwe, and we've got
Zimbabwe.
Oman.
Yes.
Why would these 3 be on your list?
Okay, Peru, because I think it's a great entryway into South America. Of course, it's pretty far away from India, but it's again a really popular destination, and I think one that's on every traveler's radar. So we've got Machu Picchu over there, we've got the Rainbow Mountains, some amazing hikes. You can actually do the Salcantay trek, or you can do the trek to Machu Picchu. So beautiful treks, beautiful hikes, amazing destination, so much to see, so much culture to experience.
It's tough to get there, though.
It's a little far away to get to.
Yes.
So if you'd ideally want to take probably a 30-hour flight to get there, which
Wow.
can get long for a lot of people. The way I went there was that I went to the US first, which was a direct flight, and then I flew down from there to Peru, and I got it during the season where the flights from US to Peru were pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So overall, because I broke down my trip a little bit, it became a little more convenient.
Right.
But again, there are a few challenges, like if you don't have the US visa,
Yeah.
if you're directly flying to Peru, then it's a pretty long flight. And I
So
think,
therefore, in this situation, you want to keep more days, right?
yes, you want to keep at least 14 days to be able to see the country properly. And of course, people must have that kind of time on their hands.
Yeah.
But again, a destination that is on every traveler's radar, and one that I would absolutely recommend if you want to
And
go
how
to
much
South
would
America.
it cost you? 14 days?
I would say, because the flights are expensive, it can shoot up your budget to about 3 lakh per person.
Okay.
Or if your flights are cheaper, like in my case, I think because they were lesser, it cost me a little less than 2 lakh for the entire trip, 14 days. So
and this is not extravagance. It's simple.
it's very simple. I mostly, in fact, stayed in hostels, and I probably did it for a little lesser than that. I don't have the exact number, but it was okay. It was manageable. For a solo traveler as well, it was manageable.
A couple more. So Zimbabwe first.
Yes. Okay, Zimbabwe is another destination that I went to this year, and beautiful. Not many tourists visit again, and Indians, I don't think, not many. But the kind of experiences I had over there, we started from Victoria Falls, a helicopter ride over Victoria Falls, and these are the largest waterfalls in the world right now.
Yeah.
You see the sheer volume of it and the chasm of water, and it falls into like a little, a ditch in earth. So it feels like a U-shaped, hole in the earth, like a what do you say?
A trench.
A trench, yes.
Yes.
And the waterfall falls inside it. And you have multiple viewpoints from the Zimbabwe side to see it, almost 16 viewpoints where you can see it from, and it's blew my mind. And then we did a self-driving road trip through Hwange National Park, which is a national park filled with so many actual animals who living in the wild, like lions, giraffes, and elephants, so many elephants. And you just see elephants by the road. We stopped at this viewing point where we saw real lions just having their...
This was on a safari?
I'm on a safari. Just two girls, just the two of us. We stopped at a viewing point, and just probably 30 meters in front of us, there were lions who were just eating for the day, their hunt, their spoils of the day. And then also we stopped at a place where just next to the road, there was a beautiful lioness just sitting over there. And there was also a point where I was constantly telling her that, you know what, elephants are not to be disturbed in the wild, because they can actually attack you, and they're very fast. They run at 30-40 kilometers an hour. So if you especially spot a rogue elephant, be very careful. But then soon after having this conversation, we had this whole herd of elephants just crossing us with little baby elephants. And oh gosh, it was scary and thrilling at the same time.
I can imagine.
And there was no cell reception in this park, but there were rangers, of course, every once in a while. But it felt like a real thrill, because we weren't doing a dedicated safari, we were just doing the whole drive by ourselves. And it was an amazing experience, especially for people who are thrill seekers, who are really adventurous. I would highly recommend this place.
But how much is it costing you?
All right, so this trip cost me about 1.6 lakhs in total. And it was completely split with my friend. So if two people are traveling, the car rental becomes a little cheaper, because we also rented a 4x4 to be able to drive across the country. And we hit a straight route from Victoria Falls to Harare. So it was a complete route, and it was really nice.
And how many days?
It was, again, I think 14 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so one last destination, but we're going to have to run through it very quickly.
Yes.
Oman. And people are reasonably familiar with this. Muscat, everyone's heard of. What drew you to that place?
Okay, I took up a challenge that I want to do a really, really, really budgeted trip. And this was a challenge that I took for myself because I was traveling solo. And believe it or not, including flights, I ended up spending just 50,000 on this entire trip.
I'm sorry, I don't
for 10
believe
days.
you.
I know you're not gonna believe me, but it is surprisingly cheap, and the kind of things you get to do over there. So there's a place called the Maniat Islands near Muscat, and you take a day trip from Muscat to go to this place, and you get to snorkel with a bunch of turtles, which are huge.
Wow.
And I went snorkeling with more than 30 turtles for the first time in my life.
It's an incredible experience.
Yeah,
I had the fortune to see a turtle once.
Oh,
it's
you
amazing.
did? Okay. And that mostly on most of my scuba dives or snorkels, I get to see one turtle.
Yeah, I saw one turtle.
Yeah, and over here there were more than 30 just floating all around me, and the water was so clear. In fact, if you see some of the drone footage of this area, it may look like Maldives to you because the water is so clear, but it is Oman. And then not just that, I also went to some of the destinations in the south side of Oman, and beautiful country. I think if you just can plan a road trip across Oman, it can be an amazing experience. I saw some bioluminescence near the beach towns of Oman. So at night, literally went swimming in the water. I was camping with my friend, and we were at this pink beach, and we went swimming in the night. And as we moved our arms, it was just blue water because it was glowing with bioluminescence. Beautiful. And then we went to a turtle reserve, and we saw turtles laying eggs in the night and then going back to the sea. And while they were going back to the sea, there was bioluminescence, which was glowing the entire coastline.
You've painted such a beautiful picture. And hopefully our listeners and viewers are going to put this on their bucket list. But I want you to also take them through a few tips and tricks, because it seems like you've gone to so many places on a budget and you managed to have amazing experiences. So it's not like you have to spend a lot of money. You can have those experiences.
Yes.
What travel hacks would you suggest?
Okay, so two of my favorite tips are, firstly, you should always maximize on your loyalty programs and your airline loyalty programs, hotel and airline loyalty programs, and credit card points. So I'm very efficient when it comes to getting all the loyalties, all the credit cards. And believe it or not, one of the advantages of being a part of an airline loyalty program is that you can get upgrades for free. So not a lot of people know this, but this year I got two times I got a first class upgrade on a flight, just because I was a part of a loyalty program. And most of the times, if they have free seats, what they'll do is they'll upgrade you to a better class, and they'll mostly prefer people who already are a part of the loyalty program.
Right.
So I got it for Emirates and Air India this year. And both times, just because I had I'm guessing, or that's my best guess, that if you have a loyalty program, you are preferred over other people to get it. So that is tip number one, always join loyalty programs. And if you're anyway going to take a flight, might as well just get points for it.
Yes.
And not only through the loyalty programs, also through your credit cards, because a lot of your credit cards will give you a miles transfer option also. So if you accumulate your credit card points on any of your credit cards, especially if they're good ones and if they accrue the points really fast or efficiently, you can just utilize all of your spendings, which you're anyway going to spend. If you're spending, let's say, a certain amount every month, let's say your budget per month for running your chores or household is 30,000. If you can accrue the points for that on your credit card and make all of your spending on that, by the end of the year, you're going to have a sizable chunk of points on your credit card, which you can just redeem against free hotels, free airlines. So why wouldn't you want to do that?
It's a great point. And this is definitely useful information. Thanks so much, Tanya, for painting that picture for us. Now we have to get into how to check those off our bucket lists, and my next guest is going to do that. Thanks once again for joining.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Hopefully at this point we've given you some good ideas of what to put on your bucket list. Now let's talk about how you can check those off. Joining me now is Keertan Shah, the founder and chief executive officer of Credence Wealth. Keertan, thanks so much for joining me. Keertan, we've had some amazing destinations spoken about on this program already, but there are so many that you can do. The thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people either don't travel at all and aspire to, but never end up doing it, or they spend too much on travel and entertainment. Is there a middle ground that is more pragmatic?
I think, Alex, this is a brilliant question that I really want to answer through this show. I think if you don't travel, you are missing out on a lot. You don't really want to be in a situation where you want to die rich.
Yes.
Right? What's the whole point of having so much of money when you retire, but your health does not really support you to travel? I would definitely not want to be in that situation or a position at all.
So don't push your travel all the way down to when you're 60.
Absolutely not, because you might have the money, but you might not have the body to support you to do the travel, right? I am somebody who believes that if you are making money, live in the present, enjoy. Of course, don't be a spendthrift, but at the same time, you don't really want to take away the spice from life and only keep working. Won't solve any problem, in my opinion.
Okay, so that sets the context for the rest of this conversation as well. Because I think if you're traveling abroad, one of the factors that you need to bear in mind, and I was thinking about what we could speak about, it's a fact that we've seen the rupee depreciate quite significantly. And so if you're talking about expenses that are denominated in euro, or you're talking about denominated in dollar or anything like that, then your costs are going to go up every year. So do you plan for that?
Alex, 100%. Like theoretically, both of us know that probably the rupee depreciates 3% year after year for the longest time that we've known of. But I'll tell you, travel planning is very different from planning for a child's education, which is going to be 10, 12 years later.
Yes.
In my opinion, travel planning is a very short-term planning.
Yes.
And you can't really set up an SIP for a travel plan because you would want to travel each year and not once in 5 years.
Yes.
Right? And hence, if it's a short-term plan and you want to bucket or save for something today, which you're going to do the next year, a 2-3% movement really won't make a lot of difference.
Okay.
But theoretically, the answer to your question is yes, that when the rupee depreciates, your travel is going to become expensive. But accounting for it is a little
Too much.
too stretched for a 1 year goal.
Yeah,
Yes.
you don't have to take so much trouble, basically.
True.
But okay, let's club a couple of things, because I would think travel is part of your experiences. Entertainment should also be part of that. And so, from that perspective, I know you said that making a fund simply for travel does not make sense. But would you have a large fund that you set aside for experiences per se?
Oh, 100%. I think when I answered your first question, I said I don't want to die rich.
Yes.
Right. So we make it a point that as a family, we end up actually spending 5-10% of our annual income in the entertainment bucket.
Okay.
Because I think out of all the money that we make, if we don't spend this much for our leisure, what's the point of making that kind of money?
Yeah.
So whatever SIPs that we actually do every year, I think 5-10% of that money is actually intended to be spent over entertainment.
Okay.
Right. So that's the kind of budget that we personally have to
So
spend.
you don't have a separate fund per se, but you will take from your surplus and you will take some portion from what you've set aside for the long term. Is that fair?
Yes, because like I said, that travel for me is not a one-time thing where I'm planning to roam the world 5 years from today, right?
Yeah.
And hence, because it's a yearly engagement, I am typically adding or clubbing that to the normal SIPs that I keep doing and removing 10% of my annual income as a spend every year from the total fund that I have towards my travel. But when I'm setting up an SIP, the objective of that SIP, one part of that is definitely that I want to keep accumulating it so that I can withdraw.
And no one's saying that you have to go for that 3 lakh right now. If you are earning 12 lakh or if you're earning 6 lakh, you can do the same thing, and you can level up over the course of your career.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think all of us, and I think I would really like to thank COVID for this. People have really realized that you don't really want to save everything for
A rainy day.
A rainy day, right? That rainy day may not ever come, right? So I think I'm very happy that people, especially the younger lot, has taken this up on themselves, that they really want to enjoy the money that they make and not only keep saving it for the rainy day, like we said.
Okay, so a couple of things from the planning perspective. Now we've established that you can actually take from your surplus and you can plan accordingly. But something that you don't talk about very often is travel insurance. And I think for good reason, because you're planning your itinerary, not for something to go wrong on your trip. But how important, in your opinion, is that?
Extremely important. I can tell you a story which is a month back. I was in the US. I developed something called as shingles. Shingles are nothing but
It's a deficiency, right?
no. So anybody who's got chickenpox,
Okay.
in the future, that virus is always in your body, and something will trigger, and then you might get that back.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
Not going too much into the
details.
technicalities. So I developed shingles in the US on my trip, and a 5-minute consultation costed me $3,600 in the US.
Oh my God.
Now imagine if you don't have an insurance, what can happen in such a case? And I'll tell you, a $25,000 medical policy was just $2,500 rupees. I think that's hardly anything for you to not have an insurance
Yeah.
for. And especially when you are in a foreign country, you have absolutely no idea of the medical system. And I can tell you the medical system in the US is broken, and how.
Yeah.
Right? You don't really want to be caught between not knowing what to do next and in a country that you have absolutely no idea about. I think medical insurance is sacrosanct,
Yeah.
and that is something that you should not miss on.
Okay, so that's very clear. And so therefore, when you're planning a long trip in particular, you must do it, particularly if you're going to Europe, I think, and to places that have costly healthcare, right? The other thing I wanted to ask is, you transact obviously in whatever currency in the place that you go to. And so from that perspective, what is the ideal way to do this? Of course, the options available to you right now are significant.
I think, Alex, because I'm an avid traveler, I'll tell you, credit cards do a much better job.
Yes.
Right? Because they are safe, they are convenient. You don't have to bother about carrying currencies and all. And specifically, there are two very large costs, right? Let's say if I'm going to Vietnam and I want dongs. Typically, what you do is you first convert your rupee into dollar,
yeah.
where you pay a currency conversion cost, and then you pay another currency conversion cost when you put or convert your dollars into dong.
Yes.
Right? Versus that, again, depends on which card are you
Card,
really
yeah.
using, but the cost is significantly lower.
You're paying the merchant fee.
Yes, significantly lower when you use the card, right? So your cost is lower on foreign currency transactions and your conversion on both accounts, right? So I am somebody, because of the kind of cards that I use, I find it extremely comfortable and cheap to use my card than, kind of converting my rupee into multiple currencies.
And if you're a little wary of using your credit card, you can always set limits,
100%.
especially for international transactions as well.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. You can do that. And plus, at the same time, there are a lot of benefits. Of course, you may use your card for lounge access and various other things in general also. But I think that's a great plus. You can set off a lot of points that you've collected over a period of time to do hotel bookings or something like that when you are traveling. I think prudently using your card is a blessing for sure.
Absolutely. I think we've covered some important bases. Kirtan, thanks so much for joining me on MoneyWise.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of MoneyWise. Let us know what you think in the comment section and stay tuned for a lot more. This is NDTV Profit.